I'm Lewis and this is DLPlanes. For today's instructional video, we're going to be building the first airplane in the 300 size series. And this is the DLPlanes. Alright, so this is the prototype version and today we're going to be building the last and final version of it. So let's get started. A few changes that I did to the airplane from the prototype to the final one was that I removed the dihedral because it was making the airplane too stable, so you couldn't really do a lot of maneuvers on it. I also made the ailerons around double the size. I made the wings 5% smaller, and I fixed up the nose right here a little bit. Alright, so let's get started on the build. When you're putting your PDFs together, I recommend that you ignore the rectangle around each page. Simply align those papers on top of each other and tape it. That's what I did. Next thing is I labeled the top row the A row and the bottom one the B row. So it's A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, and B3. When I was designing these PDFs, I used black and shades of gray. My printer was the one who decided to have blue. So when you print it out, it should come out how I designed it. The next thing is this page right here. It includes the scale, which when you print it out, the PDFs, be sure to click on the option that says print entire image. And then it should, when you measure it, it should measure 5 inches or around 12 centimeters. It could have a very small difference, but not any more than 1/8 of an inch. The last thing is the key. The key tells you the lines, what each line means. So the solid black line is the one that you see all around. It's supposed to be black. Mine is the one who printed out blue. The next one is the scheme pattern. The scheme pattern, you see it on the body and on the wings. When you're done cutting out your foam, grab the PDF and cut along those lines. And you can use it as a template. That's the one I use for my prototype. The last thing is that light line you see right here. Reinforcement. So you can see the nose of my prototype design for the DLPlanes. It's sort of cracked. And that's the only place where the airplane cracked. So I decided to add the reinforcement on the nose. Simply cut that line and then use this front section to cut out 2 pieces of foam. And then just glue it one on each side. And you can use it to reinforce the airplane in case you have a hard landing or crash. That's pretty much it. So let's get cutting. I already cut out my wings and my ailerons. And I already cut out the 45-degree angle. It's very simple to do. You simply put your aileron, put your ruler, hold it firmly so it doesn't move or lift up when you're cutting, and just start cutting at a 45-degree angle all the way through, and you should end up with a pretty nice 45-degree cut. Also, on this edge, cut out a little bit of foam off so that when you put your aileron back in place, it doesn't interfere when it moves. You can use hinges, and if you use hinges, you don't have to do the 45-degree cut. I ran out of hinges, so I'm gonna be using some tape. I already taped the aileron in place, and here I have the aileron from the prototype. So you can see there's sort of a difference right there. There's around 1/2 inch, a little bit more. I used the white tape here, the wannabe white tape, and then on the bottom side I put 2 pieces of clear tape, one on this side and one on this side, so that keeps it in place. And then for the horns, my favorite type of horn to use right here is this one, which goes all the way through, and then on the other side you clip it in place. I don't like the ones that you just simply put in place with some glue, because they love to snap off when you most need them. So all you do is just make a mark, and using the blade, and then just stab it through the foam, and then it comes out the other side, and you put the clip on it to hold it in place. I got the rudder, and I also did the 45-degree angle. I also attached the other aileron onto the wings along with the control horns. So now I'm gonna attach the control horn on the rudder. So on the side that is not 45-degree angle, the opposite side, on the very bottom, I'm just simply gonna mark by pressing down a little bit. Get my blade and push to cut the foam, and then you simply stab the control horn through the foam. And then on the other side, we grab the clip and just push it. There. So that won't come off now. Now let's cut the body. I got the PDF, and on this edge I bent it, and then I taped it onto the foam, and I took advantage of that 90-degree angle already have there. So first thing I'm gonna cut is where the motor goes, the front. Just align your ruler, and be sure that you're using a new sharp blade, because you're gonna be cutting where there are some curves. So if your blade is not very sharp, you may ruin the foam or struggle to cut it. Okay, now that I cut the nose, I can add a piece of tape there to keep that in place. Okay, next thing I'm gonna be cutting is this right here, the top part. So just put your ruler and just cut straight through. And then we can do the curve right here. So I cut that piece by doing several cuts, and then at the end I just sand that down. Alright, so now let's cut the cockpit right here. So that one is just, you do again several cuts, so you just do straight through, and then another one. Let's take this one out. And then that last one right here. And then we can just take that piece off. And the last piece is the bottom part of the airplane. Oh, this bottom part. And then we place a ruler right here. You can see the straight edge. We align it and just cut through that. And then all we need is this last part right here. Before you take out your PDF out of your phone, let's cut out the wing, the hole for the wing. So it's a pretty simple cut. And be sure to get exactly to those lines, because if you go past that, the hole may be a bit too big and the wing may wobble a little bit. So you want that to have a nice tight fit. And then just poke right here to make that hole. So that fits in pretty nice. Now I'm gonna take it off and spray paint it, and then I'll put it back in and glue it in place. Now if you're gonna use a template, to make it as symmetrical as possible, simply fold the wing in half and then just cut it. That way it'll come out even on both sides. There. Now what we need to do is stick this in place. So we grab our wing. This part is going to be a black part and the front part is going to be a white one. So I'm going to put the tape on the edges. And I'm going to do the same thing for the body. And then I'll go spray painting. I'm done painting my gibi. And I painted the wing red instead of black and the elevons black. I also cut out these stabilizers for decoration and I painted them black and I just inserted it right here. So before gluing your wing in place, I recommend that you measure out where you're going to stick your servos and you cut it out. And then you can proceed to glue your wing. So you insert it into the body and you get it centered using the PDF. And then you use 2 dots of glue, one here and one in the nose, and you keep it in place. And then once that's dried, you add some hot glue right here, and then using your right angle, you hold it in place until it dries. And then just do each side like that, and you're done sticking your wing, like I did. One last thing I forgot to mention before was that when you're done cutting, be sure to sand down the edges. So I use 150 grit sandpaper, and I just pass it through all the edges of the airplane to give it that nice smooth look. The servos I'm using are these Hobby King 9-gram servos, and they are the Hobby King 15178. You don't have to use 9-gram servos, you can use 5-gram servos, but I think the 9-gram servos are just fine. The way I'm going to set it up is the 2 bottom ones are going to be the elevons, and then the one that goes on top right here is the rudder one. I connected up the servos to the receiver and I trimmed them, and now we're going to measure the control rods to cut them. The best and lightest control rods to use for this airplane are paper clips. Now I recommend using the big paper clips, the jumbo ones, because of the diameter of the wire, but I ran out of them, so I'm just going to be using the normal ones. So all you need to do is open the paper clip up and get it as straight as possible. Once you straighten out your paper clip, you want to measure how long it needs to be. So taking count that you have to bend the ends to insert them into the control horns. So around there. Okay, so I'm going to cut out my control rods and I'm going to bend them, and then I'm going to insert them. Once you cut your control rod, simply grab a pair of pliers and you put it right on the edge, and you're going to do two bends on each end. And then you do the same thing for the other side, but the opposite way. So we bend it, and there I have my control rod. Now let's install it. I'm going to remove the servo arm from the servo, and I'm going to install it in the very first hole from the top. And then I'm going to insert it into the very first hole in the bottom in the control arm. And as you can see, since it's a small paper clip, not the jumbo one, it wiggles a little bit. If you use the jumbo paper clips, it won't have that little wiggle. And let's test that out. So that has a lot of throw and it works perfect. So you'll definitely be able to do a lot of 3D flying. I'm going to insert the other control rods and then we'll get to the motor. I'm done installing my control rods, and for the rudder I used a threaded rod instead of a clip. Okay, so all the control surfaces are working perfect. Now let's install the motor. I made this temporary motor mount by cutting out a square piece of plywood and drilling a hole in the center for the motor shaft. And then I stuck on the motor by using two M3 screws. For the airplane, I just cut out two small pieces of plywood and stuck one on each side using hot glue. And I'm going to stick the motor right here by using hot glue in the center, and then when that's dry, I'm going to use some CA glue on the sides. The hot glue is dry and that's pretty strong, but I'm still going to add the CA glue on the sides for extra strength. And the last thing is your battery. So you want your battery to be right on the front of your wing for the CG. So we're just going to stick the Velcro right here. And my CG is perfect. It's going to be marked out in the PDF so you guys know where it is. As you can see, the wings bend a little bit upwards, and that's because it doesn't have a carbon rod. But this airplane doesn't need a carbon rod because it flies perfectly without one. If you want, you can reinforce it by adding one, but you don't really need one. And that's pretty much it for today's video. So the control surfaces work fine. Rudder and the motor. One last thing is that I'm going to be redoing the motor series, which was every Friday, but it's going to be in HD. So I'm going to be reviewing and turning on again all my little vintage motors that I have. Alright, that's pretty much it for today's video. If you want to see this upcoming Sunday's flying video where I'm going to be flying the Gibi, and this Friday's motor video and everything else, all you have to do is click that button down there and subscribe. Thanks for watching, bye.